to the NewsX Sunday Garden Roundtable. Well, it's holiday season, schools are closing, colleges are closing, there is a lot of travel that is going on. But this time around, it's not just the travel that is making the headlines, but the long queues at the airports. We've seen social media go wild. We've seen the civil aviation minister actually take a good positive step and step in on the ground. Some measures are being implemented, but it's not just Delhi and T3. There are, reports from Jaipur, from smaller airports. This kind of congestion is catching on. And is it because everybody wants to travel post COVID? There's a word for it. Some people are calling it revenge travel. Is it because of the holiday rush? But at the end of the day, this is something that needs to be handled. And what does it say about the future of the airlines? Is airline business booming? What is happening on ground on the aviation sector? That's something we're going to be taking a look at today with my panel. Joining me is Jangbir Singh. He is the director at Chelabi that handles as a ground handling of 9 airports all over India and also the cargo. There is a Pranjal Sharma. He's a former editor. He's a policy expert, economic strategist, and someone who's going to give us the bigger picture of what's happening. Lokendra Saini, he is the CEO of Ease My Trip. And Varsha Hoon, she's a proprietor of Connections. That's a small boutique company that does travel. But Jangbir, you're a man on the ground, literally, So we've seen all the cues. We've seen Sindhya coming in. Are you happy with the steps that he's taking, first of all? And what is happening? What is the position on ground?
Well, with Minister coming on the ground, what happens is all scaling up gets expedited really fast. So this is just a huge surge, and part of it was unpredictable. And it's we have in India, this holiday season is coming in a big way. And post-COVID, there's been the surge both on tourism and on business travel. So airport facilities, they were probably scaled down post-COVID because there was no travel at that time. And scaling up and scaling down, in any industry has its own challenges. And it takes a little bit of time, but this is not a catastrophic event. It's probably going to all tether out in the next day or two. That's it. So I think everything should be streaming and online. But vacation traffic, which gets held up, is across the world. It's not an unusual phenomena for India right now. So you could be at any airport in the world, and during Christmas, New Year's, or any other longer vacation, you will find this kind of a problem.
Yeah, we read about Heathrow, but what are the figures we are looking at? How many passengers go through the T3, the Delhi airport every day? And what are the peak hours?
So peak hours would be the morning, because there's a congestion of flights in the morning and the evening. And this is all driven by people, these flights are put in at that time, so people reach accordingly to the city, the destination city for meetings, etc., and turnaround. So, an aircraft only makes money if it's in the air. So you want maximum turnarounds in a day. And that's a pattern that it works. So it's a very complex system that's at place there. So you have congestion in the morning and the evening, and that's about it. I don't think during the afternoon. So if you spread these flights during the afternoon, and that's it. But most people want to take the morning flights, or the evening flights, and they're coming back. Seldom would you book a flight in the afternoon, because that sort of wastes half your day.
Correct. That's true. So, Lokendra, what is the reason for this? Is it I'm told that the X-ray machines have been expanded, but the people on ground are telling me that is not enough because there is not enough space on T3. Or maybe Jangbir, I should ask you that question since you are there. Increasing the number of machines is not the answer. Now, there's not enough space.
No, the space is there. See, so you got to use the space optimally in an airport. The machines are there. It's no more the case where if you need an additional machine, that it's going to take forever for it to reach. So all of those problems have been ironed out. However, you can't just place a machine and it works. There's a protocol which has to maintain. See, behind all of this, you must remember, is security. And that is paramount. And there's a very strict protocol for it. So you just can't put somebody who frisks you and allows you to go in, that sort of defeats the purpose. God forbid an incident would happen. People will forget all of this and come hard on that your security was lax. So we have to balance that. And this is the finer part, which an airport operator, the government, the regulators, have to sit and iron out to make sure if they open up 3, 4 more gates, they are as efficient and the security is as tight as the last one. But it takes a little bit of time, but scaling up always does. But it's not such a crisis.
Lokendra, would you agree it's not such a crisis? You're on the other end. You want your tickets to be sold, and people are they holding back because of the pain in travel?
No, Priya, absolutely. I agree with what Janveer is saying. For us also, we see a surge in the number of bookings, but given the size and the thickness of our country's population, right, we also have to be cognizant of the fact that sometimes some, events also kind of increase the footfall all of the sudden. And one of the such thing in our culture is marriages, right? So we are not realizing that in last 1 month it has been the time of marriages all over. And with the increasing buying power of Indian consumer, I think they have shifted from maybe a second class train to a flight travel now. And we see that happening absolutely, across all the airports. And now if you see, and obviously I would also appreciate, the efforts taken by the aviation ministry as well, wherein they have increased the number of gates and increased the number of queues as well at the security. And also the Digi Yatri, the scanning at the entrance also is getting activated across more gates as compared to, 2 gates as of now. I think all of these things collectively are going to ease the things very, very quickly. And it is already has started showing at T3 recently when we saw.
Oh, great. Varsha, what is your take for this recent, queues and the problem that people are facing on the airports?
See, basically, I'll tell you what Jangveer said is very right. It's worldwide. I have had people missing flights in Europe, in USA, because the lines are so long. They've actually missed connections because of that. So it's not something that's new to our country. Yes, because there's been no travel for the last 2 years like this, of this volume. It's suddenly everybody's panicking and wanting to get there on time. And holiday travel is happening. People are going to travel whatever happens. They want to travel and they will travel. They have the money, buying power is there. They complain about the price of the tickets, but they will travel for sure.
If a price of tickets, that's also shooting up. Any idea why, Varsha? Aviation fuel, yes, but
it's also the airlines have lost so much money in the last 2 years. The government has taken off the band of where they said there's a maximum price on a ticket. So with that happening, the airlines know they can make money. Yesterday, I was looking at a ticket for someone. It was 19,000 rupees for just a coach in Delhi. I bought it today for the person for 13 and a half. So within about 12 hours, so basically the minute the airlines realize that the price is, they're not selling at that price, they bring the price down. So there is, people are going to travel, whether it's 18,000, whether it's 13,000, they are going to travel. So the work is always going to be there. And the stress at the airport will be there till things are done to rectify it, which they're doing now.
This price fluctuation, look in the Pranjal, I'll just come in on you. I want you to give the bigger picture. But look in the price fluctuation. Are there any times, is there any rule for that? Can you give us some tips to the people who went to, you can get a cheaper ticket?
There is no straight answer to this, Priya, honestly. We all understand, prices at the end of the day is a factor of demand and supply. Obviously, when there is so much of demand coming in, airlines would like to, cover up as much they've lost during the pandemic. And also there is a rise in fuel prices as well and inflation, across. We understand that, this is happening. However, if you kind of pre-book it, we've also seen this trend of high prices typically between the 7 days of your journey. If you kind of plan it a little bit in advance, you are also going to get a fair price as well for your travel.
Okay. Pranjal, you heard everybody. So what is the big takeaway really that, you from this conversation in terms of the aviation sector? Where do are you happy with what's happening despite all the little bit of infrastructure problems?
So first, I think it's great to have a problem of plenty. We've gone through a phase where we had literally nobody at the airports, hotels, restaurants. So, and India has bounced back at a level which is perhaps the best in the world in terms of it. Even today, half of China has been in lockdown and people can't travel. So there are still COVID restrictions in many parts of the world, and significant, hundreds of millions of people are still facing that. That's point one. But point two is that, look, we can predict a cyclone and we can evacuate people because we know a disaster is coming, right? We have that technology and the readiness. As far as flights are concerned, there is nothing which was not predictable. So if I look at the congestion, I don't accept the fact that we didn't know what was going to happen. It's not like there's a sudden truck breakdown on a highway and there's a pileup of cars because the road is narrowed.
Right.
Flight bookings happen. It's a most organized form of travel in the country. People know weeks in advance what kind of flights are there, what is the capacity and the load factor for each of those flights. You know where the boarding is. You know what are the times of the flights taking off and landing. You know all these things in advance. There is no reason why everybody at the airport level and the various operators and stakeholders could not have anticipated this. So I would think that, to my mind, it appears that the different elements and moving parts that manage an airport are not in conversation with each other. I don't think they had a sit down the way they did after the minister went. This should have been done 2 months before the minister went, anticipating that from 15th November to end of December, we have X number of flights, X number of passengers. From 7 a.m. to 10 a.m., we are going to have 2,000 people for every half an hour. Are we ready for that? Right? So I really think that this could have been easily managed. Yes, peak time traffic happens across the world, but that's exactly the point. It is predictable. There are numbers associated with it, and somebody should have done the modeling saying, do we have the systems to be able to manage it? Plus, I would say the complication this time could be that you have new flights. You have a completely new category of flyers who are perhaps not as conversant with processes. The processes at security itself have changed in many ways. There is this new layer of the private security baggage handlers who have come in, apart from the CISF, which is already there. So they are also settling in. Then you have these new machines. You have the new trays, which are partly automated, but then everybody scrambles for the tray. So it's, in that sense, I think it has been a perfect storm. A lot of new things happening. At the same time, everybody knew this is going to happen. I don't think anybody, and perhaps Jangbir and Lokendra and you are on the ground, you could have predicted it. Varsha would have seen it. Everybody would have known in October what the situation was likely to be in November and December. So my question then is, why couldn't this be planned better? It is not a surprise which has hit them.
Planning, yeah, Jangbir. And also, does this, since airports are being handled mostly by private operators, you think is that there is no synchronicity, there's some gap over there because of the lack of planning? All issues flagged by Pranjal are pretty good ones, huh?
Yeah, so Pranjal's point of view is valid, but the fact is, why does this occur everywhere? It's not a solitary incident that happened here. The thing is, agencies, there's a prediction, there's a thing, but there are multiple agencies, they need to talk, and we would have a perfect system if that occurred. So I'm not denying that. This is an evolutionary process. We have to keep tweaking it. It's like your software. Every time there's a glitch, we learn something new. If without doubt, there should be a process where you can you sit and you anticipate certain number of flights are going to be 90% or 100% capacity at a certain hour. We should be prepared for it. But in reality, there's a lot that happens between the cup and the lip. So there's an evolutionary process, and I believe that can never be perfect. If that was the case across the world, you would have just reached an airport 1 hour before and just stepped onto your flight and taken off. But you know that everyone's flyer, it doesn't happen.
I don't know whether we should say just because it happens everywhere, it's fine for it to happen here. India has to prepare for scale. When you are promoting a concept like Udan, where every middle class person or new categories of people are going to come into the aviation sector. If we can't manage the crowds today, what happens 2 years later? So I don't buy this thing that it happens everywhere. I think just because it happens doesn't mean we cannot be better than them. We have to get our act together. I think we suffer from interdepartmental coordination within the government. Everybody knows that. But at the airport level, the aviation sector, all players got to now come together and say that we are going to see a 5x increase in number of flyers. And therefore, you have to prep for it. I think you made a great point on the scheduling of airlines, of the flights. Of course, everybody wants to fly in the morning, but use the market. Make sure that, peak traffic and off-peak traffic is managed by incentivizing and disincentivizing with prices. So when you know that something like this is going to happen, use the other two terminals better. So, Delhi at least has two other terminals. I'm not sure whether there is enough information. I don't have it. Maybe all three of you have it, whether we could reschedule the flights to go through other terminals. Of course, there will be some protests from airlines, but the fact is that the overall consumer flyer experience has to be at the core.
Okay, I'm going to take that question back to Jangbir and the rest of the panel, but after a quick break, so stay with us. Hello and welcome back to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. We're taking a look at the aviation sector because, it's holiday time, it's the time to fly, but unfortunately, you're spending way too much time on the ground in an airport queue than you really wanted to. In terms of scheduling, Jangbir, for instance, as he said, Delhi, we have two other options, or incentives could be given. So, the non-traveler, doesn't have to have a business travel, can take the afternoon flight.
Taking off where Pranjal had left, let me come to the first point of what he had said, was that there should be an almost equivalent of a coordination committee. I agree. But I think this time around, if you'll see that it was one of those rare instances where Minister of Civil Aviation came onto the ground to make that. So I believe that effort is already in place, where government is going to take a very proactive, so that all the departments, and whether they're private, semi-private, or whoever they may be, that they are talking to each other. As far as multiple terminals are concerned, it's a really complex system that's out there. The airport is a little planet in itself. Everything. So your ticket encompasses everything, whether it's your security, whether it's whatever you may be. The lights are on all the time, and that you're on board and you land the other way. Airlines are working on margins which are fluctuating wildly too. So for them, you can't just randomly say that I'm going to move 10 flights to Terminal 2 or Terminal 3. There's a huge process behind it. So without a doubt, there is a think tank working right now to tweak it again to make sure that this works fine. But you can't randomly take X airline, put it in a place where there may not be enough aero bridges, or there are buses, because that opens a new Pandora's box. So, there's a constant thing from so many agencies. As a passenger, you only see the front end of it. The back end of it is extremely complex. And at the end of the day, it's your little ticket. It's a commercial enterprise at the end of the day. So your ticket price covers all of that. Who's buying for what? So it's not as easy as it seems. So without a doubt, I'm never going to disagree with Pranjal, and I totally agree, actually, that there is a room to, and we should go for that. But
Janveer, my point is, we could have done this in September. That's all. Right. I mean, we could have done this in September rather than doing it 4 days after a crisis.
Yeah, but we are a very active country. I think that you have.
It's same when you're on Pranjal. It's same when you're on the street. We know that X number of cars have been sold, and it's going to jam up the Gurgaon Delhi Express Highway. We should have put 2 of them, or maybe a 15 lane on each side. But what really happens on the ground is something else.
That's true. Let me get Lokendra, in any point you want to add, and also are there any sectors that I'm going to ask this to Varsha also, that you would like to recommend, where you feel are coming up, are being developed in recent times? Because one reason is also the increase in connectivity. Lokendra.
So I totally agree, and partially disagree as well with what Pranjal has said, and that's because we also have to be cognizant of the fact that India as a nation has a lot of spurt movements, right? We just can't plan everything considering the spurt movement always in mind. And that's also because we are already transforming from a developing to a developed nation stage, and there are a lot of things which are happening in parallel. at an extreme rural level as well, where a lot of funds are being spent. And then when at the same time we are talking about, these kind of challenges come as well. The point that I'm trying to make out here is that while I totally agree that at the metros and all in all the top cities where there is a lot of load factor, one way how this can be solved is by adding a little bit more terminals, right? And also kind of distributing it evenly a little bit more. So on that part, I totally agree with Pranjal what he's saying. Second thing is that how you also can project the user behavior and the load factor a little bit in advance is also something that can very well be done as well. I think it's largely a challenge at the execution level where we are still facing that challenge where so I've also traveled in some of the developed nations, and what I sensed is the sense of urgency that you see at the counter is something which is a little bit lacking in India. So I see a lot of times at the immigration counter there are these gentlemen who just are talking to each other, and there is a queue of like 55-60 people just waiting for their number. So there are challenges there for sure, which need to be addressed. But the good part is, from what we keep hearing in the news, is that there are 66 more airports coming in about a decade's time. That could be, a silver lining that we should look at and see how if it can solve the problem of, people connecting from, tier two towns to places where there are airports, and then, suddenly there is a lot of spike there. It might get solved a little bit. Also, with the emergence of these airlines, resurgence of Jet and Akasa coming up, I think there will be a little bit of healthy competitiveness which is going to come all in terms of pricing and the customer spread as well, which I feel is also important given the size of India. It should solve these problems in next 2 to 3 years to come.
Yeah, in fact, I'm waiting for the pricing to stabilize, to be honest, from the consumer point of view. So I'm hoping that happens sooner rather than later. But Varsha, any point that you want to come in on the call?
Yeah, basically, I would say that, earlier the machines and everything were definitely lesser because they felt that, okay, this is just a surge period. You need to do it for a certain amount of time. After that, the machines are going to be sitting idle.
Right.
So why put the investment in? It's just these few days that we need to do it for. But today, I feel that it's not just surge. It's going to stay this way. The amount of travel is only going to increase. It's not going to, so those machines will never be idle. So yes, possibly making the best of the space you have and putting in more machines, which will constantly be used.
And in terms of travel, do you see, Varsha, some sectors that you would recommend to, someone who wants to do a holiday in this busy season? Are there any sectors that you would recommend?
Something that it's not even a sector like Delhi Gaya is totally sold out. Any sector you look at, I mean, it's ridiculous the pricing on anything. So people are just not, it's not just travel from Delhi. People are traveling from all over India. Whether it be a small town or whatever, maybe they've just saved up enough money in the last 2 years with not having spent on eating out or partying or anything, whatever. But everybody is traveling from every destination. I mean, flights from Jaipur to Delhi, which normally are 2-3 thousand rupees, are selling for 8,000.
Wow.
I want to, Varsha, that's a great point. I completely agree with you that this whole peak off peak is going to disappear. You will have maybe a surge, but a smaller surge. And that's what, for example, Goa was a destination only for winter. Now it's an all year destination. So we're going to have that happening. But, Priya, if you will allow me, I would like to ask Lokendra from a travel perspective. I don't know if you manage trains as well, but I would assume that there's heavy travel happening by rail as well.
No, absolutely, Pranjal. In fact, we have seen, there is a huge surge in bus bookings as well. So there are a lot of, users who are just booking last minute also on buses. And our internal study says that this is because of the pent up demand across all modes of transportation, that people are looking out for any alternate mode of, movement, and they're just picking up anything. So we've seen a rise of almost, comparing it with 2019 of December, a jump of almost 20-22% in the train bookings, and in buses it is almost 40%. So that came to us as a surprise because when we saw the user profiles of these users, some of them were also those who were using flights as an option of moving.
This is a great point, Priya. You don't know, I'm sure Varsha and Jangbir know, but recently France has said that all short haul flights are going to be banned and stopped in France, and encouraging people to take trains, and new train routes are being opened. So, to you asked me about the big picture. I think my comment on the big picture is that India needs to have an overall domestic travel policy, which is not just about airports, but looks at a multimodal form of travel, with highways coming up, with train lines coming up, with of course new airports and terminals coming up. Do we have that overall view on that and a planning for that? I think that's the big question I have for everyone.
No, I'd like to take that question up, Pranjal, from our understanding, and I totally agree with you on this. We see the number of second AC and first class AC are almost under 5% to 7% at max, comparing it to the other category of the travel. Now, there is a huge scope where we can either ply more trains, all completely filled of first class and second class. And I definitely see there is a lot of audience and a lot of passengers waiting to book those trains. We've already seen Vande Bharat success, the way it has flown across all routes where it has been. And also the similar thing when we see it on the road transportation, you see very few number of Volvos and all of those category of buses plying, which I don't understand the reason why are we not really taking fast steps in terms of setting up a Flixbus kind of a setup in India, either by government or private.
I think that's a business opportunity for you, right?
We've been eyeing that, yes, very closely.
Okay, we're totally out of time, so I'm going to interrupt. And just Varsha, if you want to add something to this before we.
No, I'm good. I've loved hearing everybody's comments, and I'm taking a lot away from this show.
Priya, before you call it an end, let me just add to this that I remember seeing Terminal 3 during the lockdown. It was apocalyptic. Even with rush hour and we have our problems, let me tell you, I'd rather see this than what I saw during the lockdown.
That's an excellent note to end on, and a reality check for all of us who just love to complain, perhaps. Thank you all for this conversation and a look at what travel is going to look like in the future. I'm going to get you all back soon. But in the meantime, happy holidays. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.